Hey, hey, hey. So excited to be live. Fun times, guys. We have like a couple of seconds before we get started, and we're going to be talking about interviewing. How exciting. So fun for the next book club. So bear with me for a couple of seconds, and then we're going to dive into it. And it's going to be a lot of good and helpful information for y'all because a lot of people really struggle with interviews and don't need to. Absolutely don't need to. This is going to be a walk in the park, literally, because as long as you kind of take with what you learn from today, I think you will be in great standing for any upcoming job interviews. So if that sounds pleasing to you, then A, stick around for the whole conversation. B, share this out with your friends and family, anyone you know who could stand to get some interview help. And then make sure you ask questions. I can see questions in the comments and stuff. So make sure you guys do that. And I think with that, we're going to get started. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Natasha Nurse. I am a coach. I am a speaker. I am a content creator. I'm the founder of Dressing Room Mate, a coaching platform, which you can learn all about and more about me at dressingroommate.com. And of course, on the bottom, you should see like a little ticker that's flying by, which is really fun. It tells you information about this. This is the book that we're talking about for the November 2020 book club. It is called 96 Great Interview Questions to Ask Before You Hire by Paul Falcon. Now you may say, Natasha, why would you choose this book for a book club? Well, the Dressing Room Mate book club is really different, right? Because it's not just one specific genre. It's not one specific theme that I stick to. It's literally everything from self-help to things about fantasy, about body positivity, about eating, about kind of self-development. I like to go across multiple genres and multiple spaces because that's just like the kind of person I am. I don't just stick to one thing or like one type of thing. And I think for interviewing, I wanted to talk about that for November because a lot of people are struggling with trying to transition and getting a new job, especially like with COVID and stuff like that. Or you're also just trying to explore options, right? And figure out what's out there. And a big part of that component of making sure that you can transition into something else is really mastering that interview. So not only am I going to be doing this in this book club and talking about it for today, but I'm also going to be working on some stuff for you guys regarding this subject in greater detail. But more to come on that, so just stay tuned for the conversation. Also, another fun tidbit, after we have this conversation on Monday, you can catch the recap post on dressingroommate.com, which will have this whole video as well as this fancy deck that I put together with you that's going to detail kind of the things that we're talking about today. So what are we talking about today? Let me go through my agenda for you. First, get to know me, book summary, top interview questions, which is going to be critical for people who really are struggling with the interview process. You want to stay to the end, guys. Stay to the end. And then, of course, some words of wisdom, which leads into kind of some of the other content I want to put out regarding this subject. So if you're in for a ride, if you're in for a fabulous conversation, let's get started. Now, to get to know me, I mentioned my titles, right? Coach, speaker, content creator, blogger. I mean, I do a lot. I'm a lawyer. I am an advocate. I'm a person who wears many different hats in my life. But at the end of the day, when you think of me and you think of Dressing Room Mate, just think coach, speaker, content creator. I do a lot of things outside of this, but focus on that for today. And when it comes to, I guess, my thoughts on kind of why do I create content around interviewing? Well, for myself, I've definitely interviewed a lot because as a typical millennial, I've had a lot of different jobs and I've had a lot of different experience trying to figure out what is the best mechanism, what are the keys to figuring out how to best present yourself on an interview. And I've worked out a system that I believe not only works well for me, but works well for others. Thus, why we're having this conversation. So yay. So if you have questions, again, please put them in the comments. I can see comments here. And just to let you know, I'm here on Facebook, I'm here on YouTube, I'm here on Periscope. So I'm all over the place, as per usual. And with that, I think we can get into the book summary, which is going to be really exciting because this book, as you can see, is a lot. So when you get this book, and you can get the book as stated on the video here at dressingroommate.com, it takes you to Amazon. It's super fun. Get the book. There are several different questions, specifically 96 great interview questions that now, granted, it's titled Great Interview Questions to Ask Before You Hire, but why would this be a good book for you if you're looking for a job? Hello, the best way to be a key communicator is to step in the shoes of your audience, right? To understand what your audience wants from you and then to deliver that. So if you're looking for a job, then shouldn't you get in the mind of a recruiter, get in the mind of a hiring partner and figure out, what do they want? What do they, I'm like messing with my lipstick. What do they want to see out of you when you come to an interview and they ask you behavioral interview questions, when they ask you questions about the company, when they ask you questions about your future? You have to be prepared to not only answer these questions, but to deliver a presentation that they want and that makes them say, there's no reason why I couldn't hire this person, right? So it's not just showing up and just kind of, we'll figure it out. It's about being strategic. It's about being prepared. It's about being your best self for having them say yes, essentially. And for this, I think the book really organizes it. It's really organized well. So they have behavioral questions. They have questions about understanding like high potential candidates. They have questions about understanding remote and kind of freelance workers, which a lot of people fall into, which I thought was a really interesting segment. They also talk about like references and some background stuff. So there's a lot in here. I think what would probably be best to next go to would be then top interview questions. So if you go to if you get this book, at the back on page, let's see, on page 341, it gives you just like the checklist of all the questions covered in the book. And there are bonus questions as well. So yay. There's a lot to choose from, but I chose 6 questions that I want to go through here with you now. And this is where you definitely, if you have questions, please put them in the comments so that I can respond to you, okay? And if you have questions later on and you're like, I didn't want to ask right now, that's okay. You can still come back and we can totally talk about it, okay? Weakness is the first question I want to talk about because a lot of people can figure out how to muster up the answer to what are your greatest strengths, right? And even if you struggle with that, again, this isn't a deep question. This isn't a question of like, are they trying to know if I'm a narcissist? No, they're trying to see how self-aware you are, right? So if you struggle with greatest strengths, then look at sit down with yourself, write down a checklist. What have been your greatest accomplishments in each role that you've had? And then muster up kind of a summary of like, your top 3, your top 4 accomplishments that you could be able to rattle off without even blinking, right? Like you could just say it like, oh, da, 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 right? So for instance, if someone's asking you the question, what are your greatest strengths? If that was being asked to me, I would say organizational skills, creative and innovation capabilities. I would also say my ability to delegate and lead, and then also my empathy. I think I really try to understand everyone I'm working with and to try to get outside of myself and get in the minds of others so that I can work well with others. Because I've learned as a leader that unless you get to understand who you're working with, you can't be a really great leader. You can't be an effective leader. So you have to be able to understand and have that self-awareness. Now on the flip side, and I've spoken to people about this and they struggle, right? When they say, what's your greatest weakness? Is it a similar notion of like, what are your greatest strengths? Are they trying to figure out your self-awareness? Yes and no. I think here, the key is for you to identify what are the things that you have struggled with in your career, but then also, how have you overcome them, right? I don't think it's a question that you should just leave as like, I suck at ... No, and you don't suck, right? But I have experience or I have been challenged with, right? So for instance, if you have, say, struggled with time, like procrastination, right? And that's a common thing for people. That's not something particularly unique or like, oh my God, that's a red flag. No, a lot of people struggle with procrastination, right? Okay, but you have to do more than just say that. You have to say, in the past, I've noticed I have procrastinated if I haven't been given clear direction, right? So for me, what I have done is I've created an app, or I have created a daily checklist system for myself, or I have an accountability person that I work with. Like, what is your system of attack that you then use against that weakness? The value of being able to answer it that way is to show that you not only have that self-awareness, but that you are a human being, that you struggle, that you are faulted like anyone else on this earth, but you're powerful in your own right enough to know that these are your challenges, but you're willing to do something about it. Someone who understands a challenge and is not willing to do anything about it, how is that being a value add to a new team? How is that being a value add to a new company? It's not. No one wants that. So that would be critical for you to, when answering the greatest weakness question, to identify, be self-aware, right? I've been challenged with, or I've struggled with, and what was the specific mechanism that you did to overcome that? If you can say that in a clear, concise, positive manner, sets you miles apart from other candidates. All right, so that's one question to think about. Next question, this one used to bother me, but then I got out of my feelings. I was in my feelings a little bit about it. And I was like, oh, okay, I get where they're coming from. Future questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? So just to be transparent, I didn't like that question because as a person who wears different hats on my head and in my life, right? Like I'm always just like, well, why does it matter, right? Like I'm coming to the job to do a good job. Like it doesn't matter what I'm doing outside the job, right? All that stuff. But again, it's about fit and matchability, right? A company is kind of like a living organism, and each of us who make up the organization is a critical moving piece of that organism as a whole. And for us to all move forward, we have to have some type of congeniality. We have to be able to mend and work well together. So someone who only wants a job, say, for the next 3 months, and this company is working on a mission or initiatives for the next 6 years, that's not a good fit, right? We want someone who is long-standing. We want someone who sees a future with themselves with the company. And maybe things change, right? You're not a seer. You can't predict the future. And so maybe things change for you, and that's okay. But do you at least have the intention of saying, hey, I'm looking to find a home outside of my home, right? Ironically, even though a lot of us are working from home, right? It's, yeah. Not so funny, but in my mind, it was hilarious. And so what's your future look like? And so this isn't like, as a woman per se, like, oh, I plan to have kids. That's not the opportunity to get into this. That the opportunity here is to look at what you know about the company, look at what your skill set are, what you think you're bringing to the role that you're applying for. And then how are you going to enhance it? 5 years from now, what are you going to be doing in this role, right? Are you in the same position? Have you elevated in the company? Have you started new initiatives? Have you exposed yourself to new departments? Like, what would you want in a perfect world? What would you want from that organization? And I think that they're trying to see, hey, do you see a future with this company? B, are you future thinking? Are you strategic enough to think about 5 years from now? Some people take things a day at a time, which I totally get. But again, like business, like life, like anything else, you have to be working in it and on it, right? So your life is kind of this, I'm in my life today, like right now we're doing this live, yay. But I also need to have an understanding of what I'm doing 5 hours from now, right? We can't just be like, I don't know, I'll just show up for it. No. Put a plan in place. What do you intend for yourself? May the plan change? Absolutely. Freaking it's Saturday for me here in Arizona, right? Like, I don't know, I plan to do I may end up doing none of it. I may do all of it, and I may do some of it and something else. Like, who knows? But what are my intentions? So again, get out of your feelings with the future bound question and think realistically, what does a company want to hear? They want to hear a future with this company, right? Company A wants potential candidate B. B is working with A in what capacity 5 years from now? That's how you answer that question. Next question is a growth question, which I like because, again, the creative, innovative side of myself is like, ooh, this is an opportunity to create, to manifest, right? So the question that you'll find in the book is, what does growth mean to you? This is a question that sometimes, depending upon who you are, you might struggle with it, because if you take things literally, you might like think, well, what's the biological definition of growth, right? Which, okay. Maybe you can fold that into the answer. It depends on kind of your sense of humor and how you're coming at it. But ultimately, what would an employer want for you to answer this? They're looking for you to make a determination, for you to decide, what does growth mean to you? Like, to share a little bit about yourself. And then again, can you relate this to the company? Can I put together an answer that is going to be relevant to who I'm speaking to, right? Because if you just say the biological definition of growth, unless this is a bioengineering or some type of biological studies type of role or industry, is that the best answer for the audience that you're speaking to? Probably not, right? So growth, right? So say if you're in business, or say if you're in finance or legal or whatever industry you're in, what does growth typically mean in that industry? And then how does that contrast and or complement how you would define growth? And then what kind of storytelling can you put with that, right? That's how you would approach that question. Next question, I call it kind of real talk question. Why do you want to work here? This is critical, and I think that people miss the mark on this one because they're just like, yeah, like I want a new opportunity and, you know, this seems like a great place. Nope. They're looking for specifics here. They're looking to understand, did you do your due diligence? When you're applying for a job, that's why it's important not to just apply for everything, but to specifically kind of create that, manifest that job of your dreams. What would you like to do? If, in a perfect world, if you could design your job, what would that job look like for you? How many hours would you work a week? What would you be doing? What would you be making? What would be your benefits, right? And some people might be like, well, why would you do that? Because you need to put that intention out in the world so that when you're applying for things, you start to see things that match what's on your personal checklist, right? Whatever you're intending can be achieved if you A, believe it, and B, seek it out, right? But you at least have to have an intention of what do you want. So when an employer or hiring, recruiting manager, or you know, someone you're interviewing with is like, why do you want to work here? What exactly about the company excites you? What exactly about the company is a good fit for your skill set? Not just I want, right? But what exactly are you bringing to the table? And what is the company bringing to the table to you? Again, think of it as kind of like dating, right? When we date, it's not just one-sided. It's not just like, what can he do for me or what can she do for me? But it's also like, vice versa. What can I do for you? What can I give you that you want, right? Like, it's both, right? So you have to present that. You have to storytell there and say, you know, this company was founded in 1999 based on the founder's goals of da, da, da. It was really interesting to see how they grew 30% over the next 5 to 10 years, da, 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 doing da, da, da. And based on what I'm looking for as a da, 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 I want a home that is diverse. I want a home that is, right? Like, what are the specific things you're looking for? And why are they a match between the company and you? Now, another good question. And you're like, real Tosh? Yeah, really. Company knowledge. What do you know about our company? Critical, right? Because this is a really easy way to X people out, to like put an X on a resume. And again, I've hired and fired loads of people. I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed in my past where they come to an interview, especially as a recruiter, as a former recruiter, I will tell you, I think it's astonishing how many people will apply for a job, even a temp job. I don't care if it's perm or temp, and you don't know nothing about the company. Like, really, is it that hard to Google? Like, I'm not even judging. I'm just saying, like, really, like, please answer this question. I'm just so confused. So make sure that when you apply for the job, you not only look at, usually on a job posting at the bottom, they usually put like a little bit about our company. Cool, that's a fun snapshot, but guess what? You can also go to the website. You can also go to their YouTube page. You can also check out their Twitter and their Instagram and their Facebook. And if they have TikTok, right? Like, do research. Have there been articles written about the company? What's their digital footprint look like? What are the things that they are planning to do in the next 5 years? If you haven't done your due diligence, the problem of not doing that is that you walk in blind. You don't know how to be able to really answer that question other than like, it's a great job or I need a job, right? And that's not compelling. Again, right? You're not in competition with anyone else, but you should strive to be your best self. And you know that your best self is someone who can come to the table prepared for things, right? So that's the value of really doing your research there. Then the last question that I think is like really critical, and again, there's a myriad of questions that you'll be asked. Different interviews also come with different hosts of questions. Like sometimes when you do a phone interview, right, like that first benchmark interview, it might just be a quick get to know you question, and then maybe you go in person and it's more of the behavioral questions and more of a like practice them kind of questions depending upon the industry of like, if you're maybe doing data science or if you're doing engineering or something, they might have you work out things in person, right? Like there's different industries have different kind of ways of how they go about interviewing, which you can look up. You can research that. You can figure out. Also, you can look up previous interview questions asked by employers, because what people like on Glassdoor and other places, they'll post that information out there. So you can be as prepared as possible. All right. So when people are interviewing, there's no reason to walk in blind. Last question is a matching question, which I kind of talk about, I talked about a little bit, but again, I'll rehash it. Why do you feel the position you're applying for meets your career needs, or why is working for a company so important for you? This is an important question because this is a matching position type of question, right? You come to the table with a myriad of skill sets. We all do. We're all very unique. We're unique unicorns. Woo! Cool. Why should your unique unicorn self work at company A? Why does company A want you? Why is it a match? Right? Can you draw the connection for the recruiter? Can you draw the connection for why this makes sense for you? Because if you can, then that shows that you're really thinking thoughtfully and really in depth about why this is the opportunity that you're really going for, not just the opportunity that happened to just come across your table, right? Because there are thousands, if not millions of people that they could hire. Why are you the one they want? Why is this the match that they've been looking for, right? So that's critical there. All right, so just for people coming through, there's 96 different great questions in this book. All right, I just went over 6 ones, the 6 top questions that I really think would be critical for you guys to make sure that you can respond to. And that's weakness, what's your greatest weakness? Future, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Growth, what does growth mean to you? Why do you want to work here, right? What do you know about our company? And then why do you feel the position you're applying for meets your career needs? Or why is working for a company so important for you? So if you're like, Tosh, I missed it. Oh my gosh. Well, you can go back after this is done and rewatch it. But then also, I always have words of wisdom. And this is kind of what I've been kind of contemplating about in my mind about doing some more content for you guys around, because I really do love interviews. I've been called the interview queen. Like I said, I've done a lot of interviews. I've gotten a lot of job offers. It's exhausting. It takes a lot of energy and strategy, right? And I think the kicker that most people struggle on is not being strategic enough about this, not really thinking about the presentation. So my words of wisdom are as follows. When you're interviewing, there's a lot that can go into kind of making sure that you master your interview. I think it comes down to 3 Ps, right? So presence. How do you present when you show up at an interview, right? From everything from, thank you. Your wealth of information. I appreciate that on Facebook, love. Thank you. When you show up on an interview, right? How are you dressed, right? And again, every industry has different standards of what the kind of the attire is for an interview. In a more, for instance, I've worked in the space working with the data scientists. They don't necessarily have to show up in a buttoned up tie suit situation, right? Like they can be kind of more business casual. In a more artsy industry, maybe more casual is appropriate, right? So every industry has their own standard of what's appropriate for how to dress for an interview. You've got to do your research. You've got to look that up. And so that you know that from just an external perspective, we're presenting in the way that we should for the role, for the industry that you want to work in or be in, right? So there's that. Then, of course, outside of the clothing is what? How else do we present? Are we slouched? Are we kind of fidgeting? Are we like not looking at the person, right? Like how present are we? How much are we showing up in a way that makes it very clear that we are serious, that we are ready to have a wonderful conversation, and that we're confident in what we're about to say and how we're about to respond. Even if they ask you a question you don't know, I don't care. Keep the confidence game at 100 all times, at all times, right? Because this is how you distinguish yourself from anyone else who's coming in for the role. It's not competition. I just want you to feel like you came in and you did your best. You were your best self, right? Because that's all that we can ask for in this world. Did I show up and be my best self? And if you did, that's it, right? You do your best and you leave the rest with the universe. That's all I ask, right? Because if you can do that, you'll feel good about the experience. And I want people to go into interviews feeling good, feeling so good. Like, listen, Tosh told me to do my research. I knew how to dress for the interview. So I showed up popping. I went in there. I answered every question, even questions that I thought would get me. I was like, what a great question, right? And I had a great conversation, and that's critical, right? Because an interview is what? An interview is a conversation. It's nothing more than a conversation, y'all. Whether you are doing it on your phone, Zoom, I don't care. It's a conversation. If you have a good conversation, anything can happen. anything can happen. You can meet your husband, you can get a new job, you can find a business partner. I don't care what you're doing. If you can have a great conversation, you can conquer the world. So that's what's critical about interviews, that we're getting too much in our head and we're, oh my gosh, and have a great conversation. Do my research. Be prepared to answer, and don't let anything shake you, because you're bomb. Every minute of the day, you are bomb. You're amazing. You have to know this. You have to show that and present that. Now, next is the next P. So presence, presentation, good storytelling, guys, right? I've done so many interviews with people where it has been very exhausting hearing people be incapable of telling me a cohesive, coherent story as to how they got from point A to point B to where we are today in their life. Doesn't make any sense, right? So no one can tell your story better than you. It's your story, loves. So you need to be able to say, right, if you're interviewing for, say, let's pick a role. I don't know. What's a role, guys? Who's interviewing for something? Put stuff in the comments for me. Okay, let's pick a role, like creative director of something, right? Maybe of a museum or like a digital marketing company or something like that, right? So how did you get into content creation? Why is content something that's mattered to you, right? Oh, growing up, I was always reading magazines. And then when I got the opportunity, I started my own blog, and my blog was focused on . And then when I started college, I realized just how much I really not only love this as a hobby, but I really felt like this was something that I wanted to do in my life. So I took the opportunity to intern for right? So we storytell and we input the opportunities of where you've succeeded and where you've slayed, and then also where you've learned and what has given you. Oh, social work supervisor. Yes. Right. What a great title of, or like a role that you're going for, right? Tell me, right? How did we get from point A to point B to I want to be a social work supervisor, right? Why is social work important to you? It's tremendous great work, right? Tremendous. But why? Why is it? Why did you get passionate about it? How did we get there? And then why a supervisor role? What makes you a great leader? Right? What makes you understand not only the realm of sensitivity and empathy that you have to employ in that role, but then also be able to delegate, be able to lead a department, a group, right? Things like that. You have to be able to share that in a cohesive story. And then I know some people might get mad. Guys, I'm trying to make you your best selves. We have to say it in a way that sounds confident. We have to drop the vocal fillers, the ums, the ahs. Say your information. If you don't know what's next, take a deep breath and continue on. But the enough, enough, guys. I mean, I know people get mad when you kind of point it out, but at the end of the day, it doesn't help you. It doesn't serve you. And I know not everyone cares about communication. I do, because for me, whenever I've heard great speakers, it just has really resonated a bit more in my mind. And I just think, especially on an interview, you're trying to present your best self. You're trying to be as cohesive and put together as possible. Things like that, from vocal fillers to not showing up right, to not being kind of physically there and present, really takes away from the message. And then it kind of, your resume just goes on top of another one. And it's just like, that's it. I'm good. Right. So those are things to think about. Presence, presentation. Then the last P I would say is purpose. Again, when we apply for jobs, it's not, I have no money and I need a new job. Yes, that might be your reality. 100%. I'm not going to discount that or discredit that. However, why is that relevant to the person you're interviewing with? It's not. Cool. So you need to be purposeful in why you have shown up for this interview, because this is maybe the only company that's responded to you. You really want to get this job, A, for financial reasons, but B, because you're really excited to do XYZ on the job. You're really excited to transform a department. You're really excited to come in and start a whole new social footprint for the company. Whatever you want to do, what is your purpose? What is your purpose, and how does it align with the company and what the company's purpose is? You have to have purpose. Everything you do in life has to be purposeful. When you woke up, why did you wake up? What was your purpose for today? For today, for me, one of my purposes was to come here and give you this information, right? And to hope inspire you to be able to be your best self for your next interview, to make sure you not only be your best self, but to also get the job that you want. Because I know I can do that for you, because I know I've done it for myself over and over and over again. So you can do it, right? And so we have to have purpose every single day, but especially in a job hunt situation. What is the purpose? So someone wrote, I get interviewed by people not in my field, which is a challenge because I'm teaching them in the interview. So again, we have to look at when we're interviewing, right? Like, yes, that might feel like a challenge, but in life, right, if you go from the negative, then you're going to have a more kind of negative approach or a kind of an attitude about the situation. Flip the script there, right? So if you, and that's very common, that most recruiters are recruiters, right? These are HR people. They're not engineers, they're not artists, they're not lawyers, they're not teachers. So that stands true for any industry, right? Recruiters are recruiters. It's an industry in and of itself. Of course, you can't expect a recruiter to understand your role, right? But what you can do is you can demonstrate to them that as they have their checklist, as they have the job posting in front of them, what they're looking for, the keywords in the job posting, that you're reiterating that in your story. So take that as an opportunity to shine and demonstrate within your industry why you're a kick-ass candidate, right? And it doesn't matter that the recruiter isn't a person in your role, because that's not their role, right? They're here to hire, and they're here to identify quality candidates. Why are you a quality candidate? That you need to focus on you and focus on why you rock, because I'm sure you do rock, right? But it's about making sure that you're getting that information across. And if they have questions, guess what? They'll ask you, right? And if they don't, then they're either not interested, not a good interviewer, which is a lot of people are not good interviewers, right? But again, that's their lane. That's not your lane. Focus on your lane, right? Someone wrote, good to know. Usually I've had other social workers in my interviews. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it depends on the company. It depends on the industry, right? Like it really does depend. I know, in legal, right? Like when I've done that as a lawyer, I've been interviewed by lawyers, which is helpful, right? Because they understand their firm, they understand their practice, they understand what they're looking for. I've also been interviewed by just a recruiter or a legal recruiter, right? Which is a different tone, a different conversation that I'm having, right? So it depends on how the organization operates within that industry and how they want to run things. It all depends. There's some people who interview, the first interview, they don't want to talk anything about the job. They just want to get to know you. So it's literally just like, girl, well, I'm a Virgo. I like, walks in the park. And it's obviously not that type of information that you're distilling, but you know what I mean? It's just that kind of get to know you situation. Like, what made you go to Penn State? What made you do it, right? Like all of that kind of stuff, which is, I think those are fun because they're casual and they're conversational in nature, not like, when you were doing this, what would you say has been the most challenging part, right? Like a more kind of convoluted questions that you have to think about and really be strategic in how you answer. All right. So with that, pretty much that is all that I wanted to cover. I know we're a little bit over, but if you have more information or things that you want to know, please put that in the comments here for me to see. And if not, if you don't feel comfortable here, what can you do? So at dressingroom8.com, dressingroom8.com, you go there, you go to schedule a session, you can have a free 30-minute session with me. I'm happy to walk through with you. I'm happy to look at your resume. I'm happy to walk through with you as to how to handle your next interview, how to make sure you're your best self, if you want to do that, right? For free. No barriers to entrance, guys. So like, it's really up to you on how much you want to work on this process. But I will tell you, getting a job is a job in and of itself. And like anything else, it requires work. It requires an investment in time, energy, positive attitude, and the willingness to put into motion what you want to happen in this world, right? So it's been fun. It's been a pleasure. If you're interested in the book, go to dressingroom8.com, pick this up for yourself. It takes you to Amazon. Super fun read. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for participating here on Facebook. And with that, guys, it's been a pleasure. But don't worry, I'll be back next week to do another live. I'm here every month. Go to dressingroom8.com. If you go to the events page, you'll see all my events coming up. And I'm here every month doing content here to help you, right? So I hope to hear from you. If you're looking for a job, if you're looking to master the art of interviewing, I'm your gal. I'm your coach. I'm the person you need, guys. For free, you can get a first free session. So come on, y'all. No excuses. It's been real. Have a wonderful, blessed day. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.